promoting the free exchange of ideas, questioning the status quo, and having some fun along the way. This is the Are We Idiots Show. Now here are your hosts, Mark Weaver and Rich Kroll.
Jaman. Yeah,
Wow.
the music's back. You and I from the Eric Weaver Experience. Welcome, everyone.
That's an exciting way to open the show.
Yeah, a little different. But welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Are We Idiots Show. And we are your hosts, Mark Weaver first and Rich Kroll second.
Yeah, I guess that's how it's meant to be.
We had to return back to the norm.
Let's go back to the norm. You know, it looks like fall has finally hit us. We got cloudy skies. It's 60 degrees. Maybe the hot, humid rain is over, but it's still raining here in the Northeast United States.
I thought you were about to wax poetic there for a second. It looks like the fall has finally come upon us.
I have zero poetic capabilities.
I actually have a little bit of that, but it's not great. All right, folks. Friendly reminder: we need more Twitter followers at Are We Idiots Show. Tell your friends, tell your Twitter friends, tweet us. Send in some nominations for Idiots of the Week. That happened a couple weeks back. We got 2 in the same week. We want more of those. So please do so at your earliest convenience. All right, Richie, on the show today, I know you got some Idiot of the Week nominees for me. Then we're going to talk about fake news. It's a relatively new term that we've heard in our vernacular. You like that?
I love that word.
And we're going to explore the roots of that and what it means to us current day and potentially in the future. And then at the end of the show, continue along the same theme as we often do. We're going to have some fun with the best all-time tabloid headlines. Speaking of fake news, we're going to laugh at some of the best all-time tabloid headlines. And Rich will, of course, editorialize.
Of course.
All right, Richie. Sound good? Let's go forward with your nominees.
All right, this one's been in the news a lot lately. It was what's that website, the Me Help GoFundMe stuff?
Yes.
You hear about the couple that
that was in Philly, right? The one that helped the homeless guy or something? Is that what you're talking about?
Let me read this to you because it's taken an interesting twist where both sides may actually be the idiots, where I thought a couple weeks ago it was just the one side. So authorities said Thursday they've opened a criminal investigation and executed a search warrant at the home of New Jersey couple Mark D'Amico and Caitlin McClure, who raised $400,000 online for a homeless Good Samaritan who now claims they mismanaged the cash. In the latest news, which captured international headlines, which first seemed to illustrate the kindness of strangers but has since morphed into a dispute over where the money has gone, that came in from 14,000 people online. So the couple's now being sued by the homeless man Johnny Bobbitt, who one night in 2017...
Johnny didn't happen to have a wife, Lorena, did he?
You know, that's a whole nother story. Let's not get into that.
That made me squirm in my chair.
One of the most awful stories ever. We'll get into that for those who don't remember the Howard Stern, who interviewed a man who basically had his penis cut off by his wife, and the long story. Anyway, so apparently, this homeless man, Johnny Bobbitt, is now suing this couple because he had helped Caitlin McClure, who got stranded in Philadelphia in 2017. She ran out of gas. She was stranded. He took the couple of dollars he had in his pocket, got her gas, got her home, and this couple, Caitlin and her boyfriend, set up a GoFundMe page for him, but the relationship has since soured, Mark.
Surprising.
Bobbitt's lawyer says he's been told all the money's gone. It's unclear what happened to it, but McClure and D'Amico have denied any wrongdoing. They've even been on shows like Good Morning America and BBC. D'Amico has said Bobbitt spent $25,000 in less than 2 weeks last year on drugs, as well as paying for overdue legal bills and sending money family. The couple claims they bought Bobbitt a camper with some of the cash, parked it on land McClure's family owns in New Jersey, but Bobbitt became homeless again after D'Amico told him in June that he had to leave the property. During a recent appearance on NBC's Megyn Kelly show, D'Amico told Kelly there was well over $150,000 left of the donations. In court Wednesday, the couple's lawyer said Bobbitt has gotten $200,000, but Bobbitt's lawyer said he has only received $75,000, including a camper and a 1999 Ford Ranger. So now both parties are saying, you spent it, it's gone, you're responsible. Seems probably a little bit of both. And now I'm thinking maybe both sides are idiots.
But this, I'm sure they are both idiots. So, but I have a little sympathy for the homeless man more than the couple, because this is where forensic accountants can come in and quickly solve this, because it's easy to prove where the money went. All you have to do is get a search warrant, figure out, go from the where the money, where the withdrawals came, where there was expenditures. It's easy to solve. Plus, technology helps these people, because that couple was documenting their expenditures all over the world. Did you know that? They're photographed like with expensive cars and taking trips all over the place, doing extravagant excursions. So I'm very skeptical that the homeless man is the guilty party here. But hey, I'm open to.
I'm skeptical too that a homeless man could spend $400,000.
Right.
I did see on the news in the last couple days where they were repoing a BMW off the couple's property.
Oh, yeah.
And even if he got a third of the money,
it was supposed to all go to him.
It was supposed to all go to him, and they scammed this, probably justifying in their head that, hey, we helped you, let's help ourselves.
Right. And let me just say that if these people really were innocent and they were withholding the money from him because he was using it for drugs, I could actually see that. If they were saying, hey, I'm not going to give you any more because you're using it for drugs, you got to get clean before we can help you anymore, that would be okay. But, from the documentation, and they're so stupid, they documented it on social media, looks like they were spending it. So.
All right, so I'll take Bobbitt off the hook, and the first nominee is Mark D'Amico and Caitlin McClure.
Okay.
Second one's it's combination funny and disturbing. A school bus driver in Indiana has been arrested after police say they found video of her letting students drive her vehicle. Joandria McAtee, 27, was charged with felony neglect after she was arrested and after she collected her final check from the Porter Township Bus Barn in northwest Indiana. Parents had informed a resource officer at Boone Grove High School that a driver had been letting children take turns driving one of the buses on the way home from school.
Well, how old are these kids?
This gets funnier. The Porter County Sheriff's Department confirmed that McAtee had allowed an 11-year-old and a 13-year-old to drive while their students rode the bus. Hey, whippy! We're in a live video game. Don't mind that's a stop sign and a traffic light and, everything else.
Hold on, kids. Johnny's driving.
Johnny's in the driver's seat. Videos of the students driving have gone viral on social media. One tweet with footage of the scene has more than 52,000 views. Local parent Rochelle McNamara said her daughter had informed her of the driver's antics late September, or I guess in this past week. McAtee has since been fired by the district and the bus company. A spokesman for the bus company confirmed her termination.
Now, let me just say that my dad was a driver ed instructor, and I personally drove at a very early age. He used to let me practice driving probably when I was 11 or 12, and I'm all for that under controlled circumstances. But if you're in a school bus and it's not your kids and you're taking their lives in your hands, you are absolutely the idiot of the week.
Hey, Johnny, make sure you stop near the mailbox at the Anderson's house. So you got a couple kids. Oh, and don't worry about the other people driving by on their bicycles. And
Johnny, now we're not going to stop. We're just going to have Sally slide into the seat, and she'll take her turn.
Johnny, we got to make up some time. Slow down. She'll go into a tuck and roll.
Do you have her name, by the way? Because she deserves to be called out for being the. I'm sorry, Joandria McAtee. Okay, Miss McAtee, you are an idiot, and you should never be driven again. Never should be able to drive again. All right, so you're sending the dollar, right?
I'll send the dollar.
Okay, so we're going to transition now, and Rich, I think this suggestion came from someone special to do the fake news show. Is that true? I'm remembering it correctly.
This topic request came from my mother-in-law, Carol Wagner, who's a big fan of the show. She's given me multiple feedbacks from different shows, and it came about because her and I were discussing some things in some categories, and one of them being, all the news about the scandals in the Catholic Church, not just locally, globally, with the reported pedophilia, which is upsetting to her. She's a great Roman Catholic and a devoted Catholic, and the news is disturbing to her, and quite frankly, any Christian. And she said to me something like, but what do you believe? How do you know what to believe? Not just about this, about anything in today's world regarding Trump, regarding the tampering with the election, regarding anything we hear,
right?
Sex scandals with these TV producers and movie moguls. How do you know what the heck to believe anymore?
Well, we're going to have the definitive answer today.
We will?
Probably not, but at least we can talk about it. Okay, so let's first start with the term fake news, and I think you and I both agree that as long as there's been information, there's been misinformation, and deceit and lies and purposefully misleading people. So we know that fake news in that realm is not new. But the term fake news that we know it today really started back most people believe it started back in 2016, early 2016. And it really relates to our show we did on social media, because I think it's important for the listeners to realize out there how this started was really people trying to make money. So it's mostly identified with this small town in Macedonia called Veles, Veles. And early on in 2016, they identified 140 different fake news websites that were based in Macedonia. And essentially, for you listeners out there, you get paid in social media by clicks. And so there's an economic incentive to get people to click on your story. And they figured this out, and they figure that the more sensational the story, the better chance they have to get clicks. And so that's what they did. And they're just an example of a few that they put up there. One was Pope Francis shocks world, endorses Donald Trump for president. Number 2, FBI agent suspected in Hillary email leaks found dead in murder-suicide. And there was hundreds of them. But that was just an example of things that were totally false, just made up, and they wanted to get paid for it. And that's the way the social media monetization works. So before we go any further, do you agree with that? You have any comments around that? Or am I misleading our audience?
You often mislead our audience, so I'm not sure yet. But today, let's look.
You need to be skeptical of my fake news.
Yes, I now have to question whether your news is fake or real. So in the history of mankind, we've been dealing with what's real and what's fake. I mean, even going back to, I'll just throw out some stuff that comes to the top of my head. The Christians get blamed for the burning down of Rome, right? Nero blamed the Christians, right? That was fake news. In the 30s or 40s, when there was no real television, there was the War of the Worlds broadcast on the radio, and many people really did think we were being invaded by Martians.
Right.
Turns out that was obviously a prank.
Right.
Throughout history.
Well, it's now been known that the CIA used the Roswell, New Mexico, the alien stories, as they let them out there and they perpetuated them to cover for some of the things going on at Area 51.
51.
Right. So there's all misinformation. The KGB, the CIA, the Mossad. I mean, they all use misinformation and deceit as a tool.
The Salem witch hunt.
Yes.
Right? And all these young girls.
Yep.
So it's been going on forever. And when my mother-in-law brought this up, it dawned on me, like, how the heck do we decipher and filter through and determine what's real and what isn't? My own dear brother-in-law, Michael Paget, is a big conspiracy theorist who takes the side, loves to chase the conspiracies down, like, was it really America who bombed the World Trade Centers? And there's websites that show that, right? So,
moon landing.
moon landing, hey, flat earthers,
Right.
whatever the case may be. So this has been going on for thousands and thousands of years. It's up to us today to figure out how to figure it out.
Well, and I would say, without getting to the summation of the show too early, but the reality is that, with the advent of the internet, there's extreme power in that. We talked in our K through 12 education show how the fact that you can get information at your fingertips now, a vast amount of information. You don't need someone to filter it through like we used to have the mainstream media used to be our conduit to get all information. Well, now all information's at your fingertips, but with great power comes great responsibility. So now it's on you because you can get to this information. It comes through your Facebook feed, all the different news channels. It's up to you to take a much more proactive role in being skeptical. And my filter, Rich, I'm a little bit on the skeptical side.
You are?
Yeah, a little bit. My filter always starts with what is the writer or the company or the individual, whatever, what is the entity's incentives? I think you always have to first look at their incentives of why they might be doing whatever it is or putting out information, because what would be in it for them? Because most people try to do things that benefit themselves. And so you always have to factor in all known facts with their incentives. What do you think about that first vetting, that gate they have to get through?
I think that's a great starting domino number one. The source of the story and what's the motives, incentives. Why would somebody do it? Are they trying to make money? Are they trying to protect themselves? Are they trying to deflect any visibility on them?
Gain power, which
Gain
is
power.
I'm always skeptical of governments trying to gain influence and power.
Get the masses or populace on their side, especially with something that's unpopular or controversial. Yes, I think that's a great first domino. I mean, Trump obviously popularized this term, trying to defend himself and put blame elsewhere, so people start thinking, is this real? Is it not real? The left-wing press, which I think does sensationalize a lot of stuff, is really the target of this fake news, at least in our modern times here.
Yeah, and Trump's taken it to what's it called? Code level 5? No, what's it? DEFCON 5 with regard to fake news. In particular, CNN is his favorite target. He also uses NBC and MSNBC a lot, but CNN he really calls fake news probably weekly at minimum. But the reality is that, and I think I've given Trump some credit on this. I think Trump's done a pretty good job at disrupting what used to be a monopoly power of mainstream media, and take Fox News out of it and Breitbart and some of those other ones. But for the most part, most media organizations that have existed for a long period of time are of a progressive persuasion. If you look at some of the crazy stats, even though they claim to be fair and balanced, well, that's Fox's thing, but they claim to be objective. I think the New York Times, the last time they endorsed a Republican for president was like in the 70s. The Washington Post, which most people would argue is the second most powerful behind the New York Times from a political standpoint, they haven't endorsed a Republican for president in 30 years, something like that. So to say that they're objective and fair, no, they're progressive powerhouses, and Trump's done a really good job of disrupting that by communicating directly to the people and calling out and their credibility, because they all have bias. I have a bias. I have a bias towards limited government. Everyone has biases, and I think we have to that's the filter we have to look through with all of this.
Well, exactly. The biggest problem are all the people in the press, on TV, in the news, on the radio, even just general folks that are willing to run with a story without checking it, without checking the sources, just, that's what they want to hear, and run with it, publicize it, because you can create false news into real news very quickly by just getting everyone to agree with you, whether they've seen it with their own eyes or heard it with their own ears, and that's the side they want to be on. We're a very bipolar, well, we're bipolar as well, bipartisan world.
Right.
Where we'll defend one side over the other, even without any facts.
And when you and I were young, there was CBS, NBC, ABC, and for the most part, they were entertainment networks, and that's how they made money with entertainment. And they would fund the news divisions, which really didn't make money. And what has happened over the last several decades is, with all the TV channels and all the internet channels and YouTube and whatever, and all this competition for the main networks, the primary over-the-air networks, they used to be at least, now they've had to compete. And now they, too, are prone towards hyperbole and clickbait, and they have fallen into the same trap, and they're sensationalizing everything, and obviously that's why they get a lot of negative news, not positive news. So, the reality is it comes back to money in a lot of cases, and the research of these news organizations have been cut to the bone, and it's who can get something out there quicker, and accuracy is at a minimum. And it's sad, but that puts a higher premium on us, the taker of news, to be more skeptical. Am I oversimplifying it?
As you always do, yes. But the point is, you're not wrong either. Great use of the word hyperbole, by the way.
I like that word.
You've hit the audience with vernacular and hyperbole today. I don't know that anybody in our audience can actually spell that word, but anyway.
I want to work in circuitous. That's one of my favorite
words. Oh, if you
words.
Do that, you're my new favorite vernacularist. So I guess the bigger question is, okay, we've proven there's news, there's fake news. What do you believe? How do you take a side? My mother-in-law's premise was, what do we believe? What do we do as a society to vet it ourselves, to do our due diligence, to take a side? It's kind of like, to me, a court of law, right? I mean, because you really don't know.
Right.
If I didn't see it with my own eyes, hear it with my own ears, or get the information from a very trusted, honest source, I then have to make my own decisions. It's just like a court of law. I mean, look how many people have been put away over the last couple hundred years for murders they didn't commit. Look how many people are in jail for murders they didn't commit. Look how many people are not in jail and got away with crimes they did commit. This can go both ways very easily.
Right, and it's very rare that you would have all the information to make that type of decision like a jury would. But let me just go back to one little thing before we go to your point. What the other component of this, and this is for listeners out there that didn't listen to our social media show, the reality is the algorithms that social media uses, Facebook, Google, what have you, they perpetuate this by showing you things that if you click on something that, let's say hypothetically is about Donald Trump or Hillary in the last election, well, guess what? They know what that click was. They know what site you came from to this news site. And now they're going to say, okay, well, this person likes Hillary. And they have all kinds of robust analytics behind this and algorithms. And so whatever they think that you like, they're going to show you more of it. And they're not necessarily going to be fair and balanced. They're just going to give you what you want.
Tell you what you want to hear.
Right. And if you're not out there thinking that, then it's natural for someone who's not a skeptical person to think, well, this is the norm. Look at all this. Look at all this information. It must be true because this is all I'm seeing. I'm never seeing anything on the other side of this. You have to go out and find it. And who has time to do that? So Facebook is the biggest guilty party here because there's, 1 billion people on Facebook, and it's such a big part of everyone's lives. Luckily, not you and I, but a lot of people use Facebook. A lot of people get their news through Facebook, and surveys show that a high percentage of people get their news through Facebook or shared to them by a friend, and you just can't believe it. It's a shame to say, but you can't believe it.
So I guess we err to caution and come out as a skeptic and defer to not true first until we look into it further.
Well, that's the way I am, and so that's the way I approach things. And I look at people's incentives. I look at obviously what the source is, what the history is. You have to look at what history in the subject matter, and does that make sense? And that's the other thing. Like, in a court of law, you brought it up. The standard is, what would a reasonable person think? That's in the court of law. That's what they say, and so you have to say, what would a reasonable person think is this going to be true? And in a lot of cases, no.
So I think in today's world, since even this conversation is being monitored probably somewhere from a satellite,
right?
We have a lot of video, a lot of audio, a lot of instant witnesses. I personally go by the, where there's smoke, there's fire theory. Right? If one person claims to have been abducted by an alien and there's no video evidence, there's no audio evidence, there's no other witnesses, you can kind of write that off.
Where's the tipping point, though? Is it 2? Is it 5? Is it 100? Yeah, I mean, like that's a strange standard.
No, well, okay. So, for instance, with Harvey Weinstein and all these guys.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, or Bill Cosby.
Right.
Right. One person says something. I mean, a lot of athletes and entertainers are accused of impregnating somebody or raping somebody, and it's usually a disgruntled girlfriend or ex-wife, something where you can say, okay, one person is trying to gain money or save face, their own reputation. But once you start getting to like 5, maybe 5's.
I don't know. I think you have to look at, I'm not totally disqualifying this. I think you have to look at each case individually.
Hold on, let me finish.
And look at all the facts.
Let me finish.
You can't say because 5 people got together and said, let's accuse this guy, that
Correct,
it must
but
be true.
Look at the numbers. Even you agreed when you get to 20, 40, 80. Right? I have no idea if Bill Cosby did what he did. But if 40 women are willing to go public and be embarrassed and admit something that they don't want the public to know, if once you get to 30, 40, 50, 100, I start to then believe, because you and I we've used Harvey Weinstein as an idiot of the week.
Okay, but here's why I think you're looking at all the facts and it makes it believable. But how many reports have there been of aliens? Thousands. So because there's 1,000, you're going to say that must be true?
No, you cut me off again. Add the amount of people. Add now in evidence, video evidence, audio evidence, texting, emails. That we now have a lot of ways to. Well, look at this email from so and so, or look at this video that was shot in the elevator that shows so and so knocked the woman out in the casino. So I take.
Well, isn't that evidence based though, not quantity based? That's what I'm trying to point out. Is it quantity or is it evidence?
Well, now we know evidence can be falsified. You, I think, even showed me an app where you can, George Bush mouthed certain sentences because they were able to video distort. Anyway, there's ways on just a video or just an email. I don't know. So I try to take different categories and then add them together.
Okay.
So the amount of witnesses, is there video, is there email evidence, is there text from a phone, is there surveillance evidence? Because, you could get 1,000 people to say, hey, guys, let's all say so-and-so did this. So I'm looking at multiple categories added together.
Okay. Additive. Evidence. I like that. All right, so before we go into our final segment, I want to talk about the dangers of this. And as you know, Rich, I couldn't leave the show without getting some libertarian angle to this. Of course not. And referencing the Constitution. So obviously, I'm a huge believer in the free press. And the press has to be empowered to free speech and scrutinizing our leaders to mitigate their power. But there is a danger to leaders labeling things as fake news. And if you look around the world at the playbook for dictators, and this is one of the things that really scares me about Trump, because I think he's an authoritarian wannabe. One of the first things you do in a dictator playbook is to discredit the press. And that to me is a real danger here. If nobody values and or trusts anything, then how far away is chaos? So what do you think about that? And on the additive, is our populace within the U.S., and I'm skeptical about this, are we smart enough to decipher truth?
Wow. You said we only have a minute left. You hit me with that
question.
No,
not a minute. No, we got a few minutes.
All right. So absolutely and absolutely. It is dangerous. We do need the free press. I mean, we need people sticking their neck out. We need the guys that blew up Watergate. We need people to be willing to put their careers and their reputation and
to check power, because power corrupts absolutely.
But for me, I think, listen, as my good buddy in Havertown says, if it smells like a duck, walks like a duck, and poops like a duck, it's probably a duck. Right? So I think we need to use common sense. here we go.
Oh, here we go.
We
Common
need to use
sense.
common sense.
Thomas Paine is back. It's been a lot of episodes.
Nah, but what I mean is, look,
Right.
take something. Don't just rule it out because you don't want to hear it, or don't rule it in because you want to hear it. Right? You got to be. You got to be subjective about it. Right? We have personal biases. and
Subjective or objective?
what did I say?
You said subjective. You want to be objective about it.
Thanks for correcting me. We
Okay.
want to be objective about it and say, okay, I wish it wasn't this way, but it sounds like it is. So I can't. Don't just defend things because of the way you want it to be. Check all your facts. Do as much research as you can. How many witnesses are there? Is there video evidence? Is there email evidence? And that's how I go about it. I'm not saying I know exactly. I'm wrong a lot, but that's how I figure things out.
In my mind, especially when it comes to government, which government has a monopoly on the use of force, and because there's so much power in their hands, I really believe that transparency is the key to this. And so, if I were king or if I was organizing a government, I think our system's great, but there would be a lot more transparency in everything that the government does, and that would give the press lots of ammunition to go after and scrutinize our leaders. So maybe if they're instead of the Space Force, if Trump's Space Force comes into play, which is an absolute total waste of money, we don't need another branch of the military, by the way. We'll deal with that in another show. But I would have a transparency office. And that person would be like an ombudsman. You know what an ombudsman is, right? So
Nobody knows what an ombudsman is.
yes, I threw that one in. An ombudsman is someone who scrutinizes from within. A lot of magazines have ombudsmans, and you can go to them to solve problems. So I would have an ombudsman at the federal government, and their job would be to expose what lobbyists are paying what congressmen, what senators are taking junkets paid for by big business, what labor unions are paying off progressive leaders. Transparency, transparency, transparency.
Should I be skeptical then when the dairy industry promotes drinking milk?
Yes.
And the cigarette industry promotes smoking cigarettes?
Yes.
Okay, then we're on the
Yes.
same page.
Yes. Yes. Always be skeptical, but be positive. So you can be skeptical, but also be positive about change. So that's
You're really a smart guy.
No. All right, Gretchen, we're going to have some fun as we close the show. So I have for you some of my favorite all-time best tabloid headlines.
Love it. Looking forward to this.
And some of these are a riot. Okay, so we'll start with one. Bigfoot kept lumberjack as love slave. And the headline on it says, outraged wife, quote, he's no longer the man I married. All right, next one. Father goes for kidney treatment, leaves hospital as a woman. Steve Cotillius morphed into Stevie after a hospital visit revealed he was a hermaphrodite.
So wait a minute. He went in for a kidney operation and they changed his sex.
Yes. His wife isn't sure he's going to stay with her, but
Is that why they now make sure before you go under an anesthesia what operation you want to be in?
Yeah, you sign off. You sign
Excuse
off
me,
on everything.
Mr. Peters, are you here for a sex change? Whoa! I just want my kidney removed.
Richie, you're a religious guy like me, right? So did you know that the alien Bible was found?
I did not.
Yeah.
It depends where it was found, whether I'll believe this or not.
It turns out they worship Oprah.
They do. I was always wondering about that,
Well, everyone loves Oprah. I mean, why wouldn't you worship her?
especially from afar.
All right, here we go. We'll get political now. Obama hid gay lifestyle to become president.
No, that one I believe.
Marriage to Michelle is a total sham.
That one actually has some credibility.
All right, staying in the political realm, and we'll stay with Democrats here because I think most of these tabloids are owned by Republicans because they tend to bash the progressives. Clinton, this is Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton hires 3-breasted intern.
Really? 2 isn't good enough for Bill?
And in the byline it says, I thought he was a leg man.
That's a good one.
Speaking of legs, severed leg hops to hospital.
Well,
Accident victim's runaway limb is reattached after 7-hour operation.
See, that one, that one's believable because back in guillotine times, they said that when a severed head hit the ground, because the brain waves were still active for up to 60 seconds, a person's severed head would blink and mouth stuff to you.
Well, like a chicken. A chicken actually does that.
Until it finally dies. So I do believe a severed leg has some energy left in it.
It knew to go to the hospital.
That's the lucky part. That
It just happened to be right next door.
just next door. That was lucky.
All right, this goes back a little bit. And I didn't know this one, Rich, but thankfully I read this. Saddam and Osama adopt shaved ape baby.
A shaved ape baby.
Yes. And this was 1 month after their gay wedding shocked the world.
That's a lot of controversy in 1 month.
Now they're both dead, so I get,
Can't really confirm either one.
This is something I didn't know, Rich. Abraham Lincoln was a woman.
Oh, most of us know that.
Yeah. Shocked pics found in White House basement.
He was a very tall, thin woman. That beard was fake.
He was a god-awful man. Can you imagine what kind of woman he would have looked like?
Oh, that would have been bad.
All right, last one. Hubby kills wife with hubby's bad breath kills his wife.
My own wife once warned me of that late night, so I mean, I
Yes.
think it's possible.
Quote, I tried to kiss her and she just fell to the floor.
Well, if there was sulfuric acid coming from his bad breath, it's possible. They're good. They were good.
Oh, boy. Oh. So that was fun. And make sure you tune in next week, folks, when we do. This is a special show. We've been talking about doing this really since the Donald Trump show. But it's going to be about 5 weeks until the midterm elections. So next week, we're going to have our midterm elections preview show. So we're going to, pontificate a little bit about what might happen in the midterms. And as we record this show, there's, I guess, a lot of speculation that the Republicans will lose the House, but retain the Senate. But each week goes by, lots of things are happening in Washington, and economically, that could change that. So it should be fun. I'm looking forward to that show.
I'm sure you are.
Evidently, Rich isn't. Well, anyhow, folks, as always, please remember, if what you see or hear sounds idiotic, then we're just the guys to help you sort it out. See you all next week. Take care.
Thank you for listening to the Are We Idiots Show. Please subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher so you can enjoy all episodes.